just like to comment first on the extraordinary dignity and class of the woman who just addressed you, started the victim impact statement and throughout the trial. I'd first like to thank the jury for their service in this case the last several months. I have great respect for the jury system. A fair trial before a jury of our peers is one of the most important rights that we as citizens have in this country. It is not easy to take 3 months away from your work and family to sit in judgment of a fellow citizen. The jury's verdict was well supported by the evidence, and I applaud the close attention the jurors paid to the evidence in discharging their civic duty. Aaron Hernandez may have been a well-known New England Patriots football player. However, in the end, the jury found that he was just a man who committed a brutal murder. The fact that he was a professional athlete meant nothing in the end. He is a citizen who was held accountable by the jury for his depraved conduct. The victim, Odin Lloyd, was a young man who had his whole life ahead of him. He was working, spending time developing a loving relationship with his girlfriend and enjoying life. Every day, this young man made the effort to ride his bicycle from Dorchester to Norwood to earn a paycheck. And in his spare time, he continued to play the sport he loved. He was clearly deeply loved by his family and friends, as you could see from the comments today. He did not deserve to fall victim to the brutal and truly senseless murder that Aaron Hernandez now stands convicted of committing. Throughout this entire process, Odin Lloyd's family has showed grace, dignity, and patience during this difficult ordeal. They appeared in court every day. They conducted themselves with the utmost class during the trial. Their dignity provided great strength to all of us during the prosecution of this case. Only they can appreciate how difficult this ordeal was for them and any family faced with a similar tragedy. Ursula Ward has led her family throughout this tremendous catastrophe and has had to do it with a public spotlight on her every step of the way. I again commend her for her grace and class before you today throughout the trial and her comments to the judge, a very special person. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and admiration for the performance of our trial team. It was a great team effort. Bill McCauley and the team spent most of the time during the last 22 months focusing on this case and preparing to obtain justice for Odin Lloyd and his family. They did just that. People should know how much time they spent during the last 2 years at the expense of their families and personal time. The job of a prosecutor can often go underappreciated because most of the work is done outside of the cameras. I have nothing but admiration and respect for their efforts and performance during this trial. I do want to specifically acknowledge them individually. I'm not going to cover everybody, but it's important to note not only Bill McCauley, but Pat Bomberg, who did tremendous work in this case, Brian Griffin, Rob Brissett, our technical person, Jennifer Purcell, a young woman who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to prepare this case and provide important information to our prosecutors. Roger Michael, in addition, our advocates who worked so closely with the family and provided them comfort during this difficult time. Daphne Kroll, Frank Ramus, and Brandon Ferris. I also want to express my appreciation to my prosecutors' families for their support and tolerance of the sacrifices they had to make over the last 2 years. We spent many Sundays here outside of the public eye, them particularly devoted to putting the best case forward for the victim's family and the public. I also want to specially recognize Chief John Riley and the North Attleboro Police Department. Their cooperation in this investigation was tremendous and a credit to their professionalism. I would also like to thank our State Police Detective Unit who worked tirelessly on this case. In particular, I would take special note of Trooper Eric Benson, the case officer, Jeremiah Donovan, and also North Attleboro Detective Daniel Origi, the lead detective for that department. They were critical to the success of this prosecution. I would also like to commend and thank the Bristol, Connecticut Police Department for their cooperation in this matter. Lastly, I would like to thank the media, you, for your patience during the last 3 months. Respecting the adherence to the gag order that was in place, again, I think you acted professionally and with diligence in respecting the gag order. So thank you for that, and at this time I'm prepared to take questions.
Mr. Quinn, what did you think when Mrs. Ward in her impact statement said that she forgives the people who did this to her son?
I think it's a tremendous compliment to her. As difficult as it is for people, in the end, forgiveness is what it's about if one can bring themselves to do that. By doing that today, it shows you what type of person she is.
How confident were you that this was the decision that's going to be made today, that it's going to be a guilty verdict?
I felt confident that we had presented a strong case, and after a fair consideration of all the evidence, that Mr. Hernandez would be convicted.
Do you feel the judge treated the prosecution fairly in this case in terms of evidence admitted?
During every trial, there are decisions from a judge that we agree with and that we disagree with. I think that occurred in this case like it does in every case.
Are you surprised by the length of the deliberation?
I was not.
Why?
Tom, can you comment on the whole celebrity nature of this case? This just wasn't a normal case. This was a big football celebrity, and how do you think that impacted this trial?
Well, it impacted it significantly based on what we're doing here now. Certainly it was a major case. The case gained national attention. I think in the end, a fair trial was provided to the defendant. In the end, he's a celebrity. He's a Patriots football player. That attracts everybody. But in the end, he was a man who committed a serious murder and was convicted of that by a jury of his peers.
Tom, what did you think of the jurors not coming up with the medication, coming up with the prosecution? You said that they came with different ways.
I respect the jury system, as I said, and that's their decision based on what they do in the privacy of the deliberations. He was convicted of first-degree murder, a brutal murder of Odin Lloyd.
Mr. Quinn, how important do you think was Robert Kraft's testimony?
I think all of the testimony contributed something. Each portion of the testimony put together evidence that in total presented a strong case of conviction.
Going into jury instructions, did you guys know you might need extreme atrocity or cruelty if you couldn't prove premeditation?
I think we requested instruction based on the evidence. You heard the evidence of the number of shots and the manner of the killing, and a conviction for extreme atrocity and cruelty was appropriate based on the evidence that you heard.
Mr. Quinn, obviously there was the joint venture theory here. Do you think Aaron Hernandez pulled the trigger?
I would say that you've heard the evidence that was presented. Certainly one could conclude that he did, but I, again, respect I don't know what the jurors apparently spoke to some of you earlier. I respect the privacy of their deliberations, and I think the evidence was presented, and you could certainly conclude that.
Three charge letters have rolled out. Do you plan to prosecute those three remaining charges that were separated out?
I mean, our focus now is on the successful prosecution of the most important matter, the brutal killing of Odin Lloyd. Those matters will take care of themselves.
Do you expect this to come in?
How difficult was it to try this case with no murder weapon, no eyewitness, and no really hard and fast motive?
I would say that our team, our prosecution, did a very good job of marshaling all of the evidence in this case. This was piece by piece. Now, no eyewitness. There was an eyewitness, I would suggest to you. It was a videotape. Videotape, you watched it in course. That was certainly something the jury could consider. What was on the tape prior to the homicide and after the homicide. So I think I have the utmost respect for the quality of our prosecutors and the job they did. And frankly, as high publicity as this case was, I had complete confidence and was not fretting at all during the prosecution of this case because of the confidence I had in all the people who were part of this team.
How
How
important
difficult
do you
that
think
make
it
it?
was when Mr. Sultan acknowledged during closing arguments that Mr. Hernandez was there?
That's a strategic decision that the defense makes. That's up to the jury. I mean, he suggested the defendant was at the scene. I think the evidence was clear that he was at the scene, based on a reasonable view of it, based on the DNA and the vehicle and the footprint. So, and that's something that he conceded in the closing, and I think it was very consistent with the evidence.
Were you surprised by that? To do it in closing?
Was I surprised by that? Not necessarily, but again, that I'm not really reading what's in his mind or the defense's mind. They're trying to put their best foot forward, so to speak, in the closing, and that's the strategy that they took. I think the evidence was very strong that he was at the scene.
Tom, how about prosecuting Shiana Jenkins now?
Let's just focus on the Aaron Hernandez matter. I think this is a great day for the Commonwealth, a great day for the family, because the jury has spoken.
Tom, a key part of the defense's case was that you targeted Aaron, you went after him, and that the police had a sloppy investigation. How do you respond to those allegations?
My response is that the evidence targeted Aaron Hernandez. The evidence led to Aaron Hernandez. That's what I would say, and the evidence is what convicted Aaron Hernandez. There was no sloppy police investigation. It was done professionally, thoughtfully, and the evidence that was obtained, especially in the early stages of the investigation, led to Aaron Hernandez and has led to his conviction.
Tom, you've seen a lot of juries in your time. How would you characterize this one? They appear to be very involved in both proceedings.
I think so. I think they appeared to be an attentive, focused jury throughout the 2+ months. That would be my observation of them. And I respect that. That was what was necessary, especially in a case of this length. This isn't a week trial. This is 2.5 months. Some of them were selected the first, the second week of January. So I have great respect for their attention and focus during this trial.
Tom, does your office expect an appeal beyond the automatic SJC review?
First-degree murder is the automatic reveal. Beyond that, I wouldn't know.
Do you intend to fully prosecute the 2 other men who are charged with murder in this case?
They're co-defendants. Their matters are coming up for review next month, and the prosecution of them will go forward.
Is there a chance that you could theoretically come to a plea agreement now that the joint venture theory held up?
I would say this, I don't really want to get involved in talking about the other 2 co-defendants, because those are pending cases. You sat through the evidence in the case. I mean, that's all hypothetical. I think we want to focus on this case and the successful conclusion of it.
Anything about the judge's order asking
I think the judge conducted a fair and orderly proceeding. I think that I see victims and witnesses become emotional on the stand throughout trials, and I think it's appropriate if it's natural and not done in a way that would detract from her testimony. That it would be appropriate for her to express her emotions when she testifies.
Now, the judge threw out a lot of evidence that you guys brought. Obviously, at the time, that hurt your case. But now going forward, that theoretically helps any appealable issues. Now, the appealable issues are much longer.
Well, obviously, any evidence that was excluded is not going to be the subject of an appeal. The appellate process takes care of itself. Automatic appeal, first-degree murder, that's for another day. We feel that we tried a good case and presented the evidence in an appropriate and proper fashion.
Do you think Aaron Hernandez gets it? Do you think he got it tonight when that verdict was read?
I don't know. I think when you're taken away and they say life in prison without parole, someone's got to respond to that. there's got to be some response, but I don't know if he got it.
Is your office working closely with the Suffolk County DA to see if any information, evidence has been garnered in the new charges?
Suffolk has their pending cases, has their case pending. They're dealing with it. Certainly, if there's any information we have that can be of assistance, we'll work with them.
Mr. Quinn, can we hear from Mr. McCauley, would you mind?
You can?
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?